Shalom, family, and welcome to Into All Truth. Welcome back. I give all praise and glory and honor to the Most High Yahweh. I pray that this word blesses the hearers. I pray that the eyes of your understanding be enlightened, that you be given a spirit of wisdom, revelation, and knowledge to know what is the hope of your calling, what is the inheritance of the assembly in Israel, and what are the riches of Yah's glory in Yeshua HaMashiach. Shalom, family, and welcome to Into All Truth. And today I want to do a bit of a revision on my Dalit, the door open to the promised land video. I was watching one of the teachers, and they were talking about how, of course, the people in the region of what is currently Iraq are largely of the Gentile nations. And so I took a look into it because I knew the Medo Persians were basically East Indian people, and I had seen pictures of them. And so I just want to share with you some of the things that were revealed and to show you how the part that India and Pakistan will play in all of these battles will affect Israel coming into the promised land, and also to picture them in your mind as the fourth carpenter. Okay, I wanted to review my last video that I did on the door to the promised land, the Dalit. And the reason for that is that a lot of the people in Iraq many of them are descendants of the Russians or the Turkish and so on. They've settled in those areas. Those lands have been overrun by the Gentiles, even though some of them are still the indigenous people. But I wanted to draw a video to you about the importance of India, because India and those in it, not all of them, are the real Medo Persians. They are the dark-skinned people who, at the time of Xerxes, when Esther married the king, these are the people who were changed by the presence of Esther and Mordecai in that land. And so this is the Medo-Persian king that is going to be in part blessed with repatriating Israel, or whom we could consider to be the fourth carpenter. And what is really interesting about some of these people in the land of India, and a lot of them are in both Pakistan and India. Now, Pakistan and India have been divided by the Europeans. But here's an interesting article about a people called the Untouchables, who are also called the Dalit. Now, I told you that the door to Israel is opened through Iran for the true people to come home, and it's called the Dalit, the door. And there's actually a people in India, a persecuted people called the door. So it says, tell everyone we scalped you, how caste still rules in India. Geetabai Jatav and her husband Sardar Singh Jatav sent her at the government hospital in Gwalior. Mr. Sardar, a Dalit, was attacked by an upper caste man. So Mr. Sardar was a Dalit. Okay? So I'll just keep reading. He went for a walk, and a higher caste man named Mr. Sardar greeted him with a punch in the face and broke his arm and pinned him down. And nobody came to his help. And this man stuffed a rag in his mouth, and he pulled out a razor and began to scalp him. And then he says, tell everyone we scalped you. So Mr. Sardar is a Dalit, a class of Indians who are not just considered lower class, but technically outcast. Now remember, the scripture says they have called thee an outcast. Now remember, the scripture says they have called thee an outcast, or what used to be called an untouchable, which is what I suspected all along, was that the untouchables are Hebrews or those who had bowed their head to Yah. This article says that this group is considered so unworthy that they're not even in the caste system. Many Hindus believe that the Dalits are less than human and are spiritually uncleaned. They were once forced to drink from clay cups that would be destroyed after one use. They have unclean footprints. They're ostracized in Indian society because they are considered unclean, untouchable. And it says here that they have defied social traditions and gone on to achieve great success in society, becoming doctors, writers, politicians, leaders. India even had a Dalit president who was elected president of India in 1997. So they are still considered outcasts by many upper caste people. And the Hindus still look down on them. Now, this Dalit population is estimated to be more than 300 million, and they've been abused as long as anyone can remember. And the violence against them is rising. So I'm wondering if these are Hebrews. And they're often greeted with unchecked brutality. So that's where he was attacked. The crimes are happening across the country, and the Dalits are not simply killed, they are humiliated, tortured, disfigured, destroyed. And then, of course, Avati Ramaya, a sociology professor at Mumbai, says we have a mental illness. You think that India being a world power or global power, sending satellites into space, as long as Hinduism is strong, at the lower caste will be persecuted. So, and they don't have critical numbers to counterattack. And in October, a 14-year-old Dalit girl was beheaded by an upper caste man who said that he hated the girl specifically because of her caste. And then a scavenger was tied up and fatally whipped. Another man was killed for riding a horse, and because a Dalit should not ride a horse. And this is a mention of affirmative active programs. Here they are. This is what the people look like. They look like Hebrews, don't they? Look at the hair. Dalit woman of Dati. So 95% of Indians still marry within their caste. And of course, we know the Brahmin Hindus are originally Caucasians from the Caucasus Mountains. So they are Gentiles. And of course, they worship the Hindu gods. So here is a higher caste Gujar man arguing with the Dalits. Okay? They don't look that much different. But this is the divide and conquer tactic of Europe when they leave behind their colonized states. So it just talks about how they are living under their persecution. The article even compares their circumstance to that of the people in the Jim Crow era in the United States. Mr. Sadar said that while he was being scalped, the Gujars taunted him for wearing a turban, something the Dalits are not supposed to do. And he remembers the men saying, "We're going to take away your crown." Now he has a horrible scar that will remind him for the rest of his life that what the higher caste men did to him. I wish I were in a different caste, he sighed. I think at the end, he's not going to wish that. So I thought this was really interesting in light of what is going on in these present times, because these are that when we look at the true Medo Persians, they are very dark people with slightly kinky hair and long hair. These are the original people. It's not, as I said, the Caucasian people, the Turkish who largely inhabit, and other Gentile nations who inhabit much of Iran today. There's a real mix of people there, but it's trodden down by the Gentiles, like most of that region. And what's really interesting here is that this article is what brought it to my attention, because it says, are the Brahmins the Dalits of today? So it talks about how they're starting to be persecuted. But the point of all of this is to say that these people are the Dalit, the door. The people in those regions will help to open the door to the promised land, and are probably closer to the true descendants of the Medo Persians, who were a dark people with thick, long hair. And look how much this Dalit on the right looks like a brother. And look, notice his hair is kinkier than the man on the left, who is Brahmin Hindi. So the man on the right is the Dalit. So I think he's a Hebrew, but this may be also those among the people of India, Pakistan, Iran, who did become and intermingle with the Hebrews. So around the time that Gandhi, through his protest, won the freedom of, quote, India, basically in 1947, England pulled out and divided India and Pakistan. And of course, this is what the Europeans always do. A nation divided cannot stand, is what Yeshua said. Again, a nation divided cannot stand. So the strategy of the colonizers, of the British, of Europe always is to divide a people so they cannot stand. So the partitioning of India was in 1947. And so what they did was they split Pakistan in two and set it on either side of India. So you have India in the middle, and East Pakistan on one side and West Pakistan on the other side, close to Iran. And then as far as Kashmir, the princely state, was concerned, they left the people of India and Pakistan to fight over that. Now, the people of India and Pakistan share resources like water and oil and crops, which they export as well in many, many products. But the other way that, of course, the Europeans, the British, divided them was by religion. So there was a migration of the two different groups of religious people across borders in 1947 after this insane divide and conquer division took place. So they made the Muslim area Pakistan, and then they made the Hindi and Sikh area India. And of course, India has a lot of the Brahmin Hindis in power there. So they are the Caucasian people, the people of the Caucasus Mountains. They are not Shemitic people. They are people of Japheth and other kinds of background, seed, fallen seed, or Neanderthal, or whatever. And so the consequence of all of this, of course, rather predictably, was rioting, the New Delhi riot, in which tens of thousands of people were killed or killing each other in rioting. So again, as usual, the Europeans parted people's land. And this is the word of chastisement from Yah to Babylon. You have parted my land, therefore I will part your land. So this is what the West always does. This is what the Iron Kingdom, the woman on the beast, always does, is sets up nations and then leaves them in a state of division. what does scripture say? A nation divided cannot stand. And so this is always this strategy. There are many, the true Medo-Persian people are the true, as you could say, Shemitic peoples of India. And of course, the Medo-Persian Empire includes Iran, but it also includes India and Pakistan. So let's be very clear that's how far the Medo-Persian Empire extended. And so Daniel 8, 1 through 2 says, in the 3rd year of the reign of King Belshazzar, a vision appeared unto me, and I saw in a vision, and it came to pass when I saw that I was at Shushan in the palace, which is in the province of Elam, and I saw a vision, and I was by the river of Wwiii. So in Daniel's vision, the prophet sees himself at Shushan Palace in Elam by the river of Wwiii. So this is part of the Medo-Persian Empire. The palace of the Medo-Persian Empire was at Shushan. And let's just take a look at Esther to give us a description of it. According to Esther, now it came to pass in the days of Osiris, this is Osiris which reigned from India even unto Ethiopia, over 127 provinces, that in those days when King Osiris sat on the throne of his kingdom, which was in Shushan, the palace. So we know the palace was in Shushan, and we see here depicted people of Ethiopia and Nubia coming to give tribute to the king Osiris, or the kings in Medo Persia. As the empire extended all the way through Edom and Arabia and Israel, all the way down into Ethiopia. And so European maps generally do not depict this entire empire correctly. Now, when we go down to Esther 1, verse 9, it says, also Vashti the queen made a feast for the women in the royal house which belonged to the king Osiris. But the queen Vashti refused to come at the king's commandment to his chamberlains. So the purpose of displaying the name of his queen, Vashti, is because it is a very common East Indian name. It is a very common name among Indian people because of the influence of Hinduism, but it is the queen of Osiris is an East Indian woman. So we know that this empire is in India, of the British, of the nations of the north. And so this is basically what happened in that region. But this may be an important factor once the wars start to come down. Because as you've heard in this, I'll let you watch this video.
It seems like Great Britain is in the news every single day, right? While comparatively, India is hardly in the news at all. And of course, Brexit's interminable coverage, some of which you do see here. But did you know that India is about to surpass the Brits? They're about to surpass them economically. Most people don't know this. As the 5th largest economy in the entire world, they also have nukes that are pointed at Pakistan. So, India matters. Here's the thing. They rarely get much news coverage. Tonight we focus our attention on India. Why? 900 million people went to the polls to re-elect Prime Minister Narendra Modi, who is a Hindu nationalist, by the way, and remember that. So what does this mean for the direction of the country? How does this affect us? And more importantly, perhaps, the conflicted relations that India continues to have with Pakistan. Jay Kanzara is one of the directors of the Hindu American Foundation, and he's good enough to join us now live to bring us up to date on this topic. Hey, Jay, given who this guy is, this president who was reelected, and he seems to be, if I can use this term, correct me if it's wrong, a Hindu hawk, should we be more concerned about what he might do regarding Pakistan?
So thank you, Rick, for having me on this evening. Prime Minister Narendra Modi is first and foremost a democratically elected leader who was just given a huge mandate by the people of India, over 300 seats in India's parliament, which is well over the majority number of seats needed to win on his own mandate. And that is significant for the United States, especially because he has been a key partner, India has been a key partner in the war on terror, and ensuring that America's security interests are maintained in the region. India is right there helping the United States in Afghanistan. They've rebuilt the parliament there. They've also helped with training police officers. They've also been working hand in hand with American security agencies and intelligence agencies to provide critical information needed to ensure that America's security interests are played out in the region.
So that partnership is solid. I want to come at you from a different direction now. I want to talk about the lack of coverage that India gets. Maybe even the word respect might be appropriate here. And I was starting to read to coverage that India gets. Maybe even the word respect.
Region.
So that partnership is solid. I want to come at you from a different direction now. I want to talk about the lack of coverage that India gets. Maybe even the word respect might be appropriate here. And I was starting to read today about India, and I was really taken aback by the direction of the economy of this country in the future. If it continues the way it's going, it's not just going to pass Great Britain, it's going to pass a whole bunch of countries. What's going on?
Including America. It's expected to be a larger economy than the United States even. I mean, when you have 1.3 billion people, when you have an economy that's having, sustained growth of 6 to 7% a year, and when you are ensuring a free and fair market system, or trying to engender that amongst in India, and the Sensex, by the way, and the Nifty 50 as it's called, which are the stock exchanges in India, went through the roof when Narendra Modi's election was announced. That his party was overwhelmingly the majority in Parliament, and so therefore this is a key relationship that the United States, if I may be so blunt in saying, it is the most important relationship that the United States is going to have in this century. It is the only.
Do you agree when I made? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. I thought you were done. But do you agree when I made the point that here, every royal baby is covered, everything that happens in Britain is covered, and yet, we barely hear a peep about India.
And unfortunately, what is often portrayed about India is extremely stereotypical. It is xenophobic, and it is, and as you said before, it does not garner the respect that a country of 1.3 billion people that is peaceful, that is a leader in the region deserves. And I think the Indian American community, of which it's 3+ million strong, are changing that perception as well, because they are, and the diaspora across countries, UK, Singapore, Great Britain, Australia, Africa, etc. The Indians that have lived in these countries outside of India are overwhelmingly supportive of the re-election of Narendra Modi, because they want to see development in India.
I'm going to go back. We have 30 seconds because you kind of brushed aside my first question a little bit, so I'm going to throw it back at you.
Sure.
I'm still a little worried about your relations with Pakistan. And by you, obviously, I'm not referring to you, but I mean India's relation with Pakistan. What would you say on that issue?
Well, I noticed that Prime Minister Imran Khan did tweet at Narendra Modi this afternoon, in which he said that he wants to work towards peace and prosperity in the region. And I think the Prime Minister of India has nothing but those intentions. And Pakistan has to rein in terror. They recently perpetrated a terror attack from their territory in Kashmir, the Indian state of Jammu and Kashmir, and this was simply unacceptable by the international community. I think the international community is standing with India on combating terror, including Gulf countries such as the UAE and even Saudi Arabia.
And then, as you've heard in this video from RT, the Indians have very much sided with the Americans. They've got a larger Brahmin caste, Caucasian caste, and they have been supporting Iraq, and they are standing against, quote, terrorism, and they are calling the Pakistanis terrorists. And so when the scripture talks about these wars and battles that will take place, at first, the Medo Persians are part of Yah's vengeance against Babylon. And then, when Babylon comes to attack, they side with her. So this could be the split between the Pakistanis, or the true people, including the Dalit people, the untouchables, versus the Brahmins, who are now beginning to consider themselves a minority and realizing the fall of the Gentile powers in their community. So what may happen is that the people who are of Islam or of Iran or of the untouchables within Pakistan and so forth may, because they are being pushed away by the Americans, may choose to go over and side with Iraq in order to break open that door, right? And then the people of India will side with America. And but then eventually, when Russia comes back a second time to a people in unwalled villages and unsuspecting people in unwalled villages, and goes in a second time to take a spoil, then it says at that time that the Medo Persians will be on their side also. So that may be a time when India has actually sided with them. So I guess we'll just have to see what happened. But anyway, I wanted to put that in as a note. These guys are part of the four carpenters, the people of India and Pakistan, the true Medo Persians. So let's review what is to happen to the Babylonian king when he invades the land of Israel to fight his enemies in Iraq and in the north and in the east. So you will recall in my last video about the Dalit, the door, I went over the designation of who the actual Babylonian king is, starting with this chapter in Daniel 11:40. And at the time of the end shall the king of the south, that's Put, Cush, Libya, push at him. And the king of the north shall come against him. Him is Babylon. Him is the subject of this sentence. The king of the north shall come against him like a whirlwind, with chariots, with horsemen, and many ships, and he shall enter into the countries and shall overflow and pass over. So that means the king of the north, Russia, will come in to the beautiful land and overthrow, overflow, and pass through it. He will have victory. And he is coming from the north, and the king of the south is coming so the king of the south will be at his feet, either in subservience to him or attacking his feet. And Russia, the king of the north, will be coming at him. And then it says, but tidings out of the east, that is Pakistan, India, Iran, and China, potentially. And out of the north, that is Russia, shall trouble him, the king of the west, that is, the king of Babylon, the king of the west. Therefore he will go forth with great fury to destroy and to utterly make away many. And then of this king of Babylon it says, and he shall plant the tabernacles of his palace between the seas in the glorious holy mountains. Yet he shall come to his end, and none shall help him. So basically, this is prophesying the end of the king of the West, because we will see here that
it's expected to be a larger economy than the United States. Even, I mean, when you have 1.3 billion people, when you have an economy that's having sustained growth of 6 to 7% a year, and so therefore. This is a key relationship that the United States, if I may be so blunt in saying, it is the most important relationship that the United States is going to have in this century. And unfortunately, what is often portrayed about India is extremely stereotypical. It is xenophobic, and it is, and as you said before, it does not garner the respect that a country of 1.3 billion people that is peaceful, that is a leader in the region deserves. And so therefore, this is a key relationship that the United States, if I may be so blunt in saying, it is the most important relationship that the United States is going to have in this century. If I may be so blunt in saying, it is the most important relationship that the United States is going to have in this century.
So remember, the untouchables are the Dalit, the door in Hebrew, and the Indians make dal, which is chana pea flour, and they are the door to the promised land. In Daniel chapter 11, when he discusses the beginning of the end and the attack of the false Gentile nations in Israel, only 3 directions, east, south, and north, are mentioned. And it is mentioned that Russia will come like a whirlwind. The whirlwind requires 4 winds from the 4 corners of the earth. But west is a direction that's not mentioned. Only he is mentioned as a warring kingdom that is against all 3 of the other directions. So, by deduction, we can see that he is likely the king of Babylon, the king of the west, who shall be overthrown. For Yah is the God of the whirlwind.
India has been a key partner in the war on terror and ensuring that America's security interests are maintained in the region. India is right there helping the United States in Afghanistan. They've rebuilt the parliament there. They've also helped with training police officers. They've also been working hand in hand with American security agencies and intelligence agencies to provide critical information needed to ensure that America's security interests are played out in the region.
So I just want to show you the relationship India has with, positionally, with China and Pakistan as an American ally, and even Russia. I want you to consider this, because there's been all kinds of alliances with the US by Pakistan and India, Pakistan and China, Pakistan and Russia over the years. And here's a quick article to review for it. Okay, family, so let's take a look at the relationship between India and Pakistan and the USA. And this is an old article from 2015. Here's the past relationship history between Pakistan and the USA and Afghanistan, China, and Russia. So in the 20th century, Pakistan was fighting the Soviets together with the Arabs of the Persian Gulf and the Americans. So Pakistan was fighting the Soviets alongside the Arabs, the Persian Gulf, and the Americans. Okay? So Pakistan was also fighting India together with China. During the Soviet invasion of Afghanistan in 1979, the Americans, the Chinese, and the Arabs of the Gulf and the Pakistanis were supporting the Islamists of Afghanistan against the communists of Afghanistan, who were supported by India and the Soviets. So you see how much side switching there is. You have the Americans, the Chinese, and the Arabs of the Gulf and the Pakistanis were supporting the Islamists of Afghanistan against the communists of Afghanistan. So you see there's constant side switching here, constant alliances. During the 20th century, American and Pakistani interests were almost perfectly aligned, but things have changed. China is promoting the $45 billion China-Pakistan economic corridor in order to receive raw materials from Africa. Okay? Now, my objective here is for you to take a look at the relationship between India, Pakistan, China, Russia, and Africa. Okay? So China is facing many enemies at South China Sea due to her desire to completely dominate this sea by militarizing small islands located in other countries' exclusive economic zones. China is also developing the Kenyan port of Lamu in order to ship to China the raw materials of Africa and in order to ship to Africa Chinese products. Okay, so when we look at this picture, here's India, here's Pakistan, here's Afghanistan, all right, and then we've got some of Pakistan over here as well. China's right above India, okay? India is not very close to the United States. It is surrounded by Pakistan, who now has alliances with China. China is right above it. And then China is working in Kenya and even the South Sudan and Sudan to destabilize it, so that through Kenya and even the Congo, which is being contended over between America and China and the 10 kings of the EU. But this is China's key relationships right here, right now. Okay? So India is surrounded by enemies if it chooses to side with the United States. If the United States loses its power, India is surrounded by enemies. You can see on the map, by using the China-Pakistan economic corridors, China can save billions of dollars in transport costs. And also encircle India by creating a naval base at the Pakistan port of Gwadar. Okay, so that's here. Gwadar, sorry, I reversed that, will also give China a naval base near the Persian Gulf. Okay? Moreover, Iran and China will use China-Pakistan economic corridor in order to send to China the oil and natural gas of Iran, which means transit fees and investments for Pakistan and an enhanced energy security for the country. Therefore, it seems that Pakistan has more to expect from China than from the US. So, trying to maintain a balance between Pakistan and India can be very tough for America, and it can hurt the new American-Indian friendship. India cannot count on Russia for help when she's facing China, because Russia and China are allies. But India can count on the USA. And it says the problem is Pakistan, but can the USA rely on India? Because India is a natural competitor for China. But more than that, is it wise for India to side with the US? Richer. But the upshot of this, you guys, I'm not going to read the whole article. You can go to iCal WordPress to find out more. But basically, that's the picture. So what do you think is going to happen if America goes to war in Israel? And he, the king of the west, shall plant the tabernacles of his palace between the seas in the glorious holy mountain. Yet he shall come to his end, and none shall help him. So that, family, is the door. May Yah bless you and keep you and cause his face to shine upon you. May he be gracious, lift the light of his countenance, and give you shalom. Again, you can Eat Life and Fast through my website, download it through Dropbox, and the Into All Truth calendar. And keep in mind, people, that these are the end times, and we have to be diligent to understand what's going on. I may not always interpret everything perfectly, but I prayerfully do my best according to the will of Yah. So thank you so much for watching. Please like, subscribe, and share. Shalom. Huma Yahweh, Oyapfutsu Senen Nawakampanam. O Yahweh, may your enemies be scattered before your face. Amanah.